Hey guys, welcome to the lesson on how your brain works. Because this course focuses so much on the root cause of why you're taking action, like your mindset, that's what we're going to start with is your brain. So I am not going to even attempt to be super scientific. So for those of you who know your brain and anatomy, I apologize in advance, but for those of you who know nothing about the brain, this will be like an introduction for you. So I'm just putting that out there ahead of time that I'm only going to talk about what's useful for purposes of the goals of this course. We're going to start off with the cerebellum, and this is like your unconscious brain. It seeks efficiency. This is like the fight or flight brain. It's fear-based. It's always trying to protect you and keep you alive. This is your habit brain. So you'll hear me talk a lot about your primitive brain or your cerebellum or your fight or flight brain, and this is what I'm talking about. Contrast that with the other part that I'll talk about a lot, which is the prefrontal cortex. This is the other relevant part of your brain for purposes of this course. This is your thinking and planning brain. It's imaginative, it's future focused, it's very slow and thoughtful. It requires a lot of energy. This is like your goal to use. This is your goals brain. So when you're planning for your future and you're not scared, like this is the part of the brain that you're using. When you take action on that plan and you go into fight or flight mode and all your fears come up, that is like your lower primitive brain. Your brain is made up of approximately 100 billion nerve cells called neurons, and they gather and they fire signals to and from your brain. So I like to use the analogy of your brain being like a computer. So these would be like the wires in the computer, and the information travels through these neurons of the brain along a pathway, and that is a neural pathway. So neural pathways are really, really relevant to the results you have in your life because what's happening here is your brain has made a pattern. It doesn't have to do anything to maintain it, so it loves this. You can create new neural pathways, and you do that every time you experience and do something different. And this is how you condition yourself to do different things. So if you were given, I'm going to go through a couple examples here. If you were given food as a reward when you were a child, their neural pathway now is if you want to feel good, you should eat. Driving the same way to work every day, you have a neural pathway to do it. It doesn't take any, thought, right? How many of us go different ways to work? Not many of us, because it's just efficient. Our brain likes efficiency. A certain smell or perfume that reminds you of a certain time in your life. This is a neural pathway. Abusive relationships, when I learned this, I was like, oh my gosh, I get it now. People don't leave abusive relationships often and they continue what they call the cycle is because it's familiar to them. Literally, your brain would rather just repeat what it's done in the past because it knows that you can stay alive that way. Like it thinks that you'll stay alive that way anyways because it's familiar. Your brain loves familiarity. It's just trying to be efficient and protect you. But your brain is actually not static or fixed. And this is something that wasn't always known. So your brain can change and adapt. And this is seriously great news because you can change and develop your future, design your life in the way that you want to by thinking differently. You practice something and you strengthen the connections of neurons over time to get a new result. So the more that you practice this, the more connections are changed and made to include all these elements of experience. Basically, what I'm saying here, I know this is a lot, but you can rewire your brain with neuroplasticity to improve everything in your life. Time management, productivity, goals, habits, whatever. So if you've always said, oh, I'm just bad at time management, or I'm just bad at productivity, or something like that, you may have been in the past, but you don't have to be in the future. That's what I'm trying to say here. This is amazing. You're not just like this, however you say, I'm just blah, 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 I'm just bad at, or I'm just good at, whatever. All that's happening is that your brain has made a habit of being that particular way because that's how it's always done it. But you can actually change if you don't feel like your neural pathways are serving you. Like, I love this. When I found this out, I was like, holy crap. It was amazing. You can have more money, you can have more time, you can have more happiness, like fill in the blank. The way that you do this is you change your neural pathways. And this is basically why we started here, because everything in this course is going to stem from that cause, that root cause of changing your mindset and your brain to get the results that you want. So again, there's two main parts that I'm going to reference of the brain throughout this course. Your cerebellum, that's like your primitive habit brain, fight or flight brain, and then your prefrontal cortex, which is your goal-setting brain, planning brain, future focus brain. And it's basically like the goal is to do things from your prefrontal cortex and then not listen to your lower primitive brain when it's working against you. And to kind of get it in the routine of good habits instead of the habits that it's repeated from the past. You will learn how to basically use these to your advantage and overcome fear and doubt and to truly design your dream life. Okay, I will see you in the next lesson.